screen we have question number 9, and we have to give a comparative account of the classes of kingdom fungi under the following, that is mode of nutrition and mode of reproduction. So in this question basically we have to give a comparative account of different classes of kingdom fungi with respect to the mode of nutrition in them as well as mode of reproduction in them. Basically we have 4 classes, 4 different groups of kingdom fungi, and this includes Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes and Deuteromycetes. So basically we have 4 classes of kingdom fungi. First one is Phycomycetes, then we have Ascomycetes, Deuteromycetes and Basidiomycetes. First, if we talk about the first class of kingdom fungi, that is Phycomycetes. This group of fungi, Phycomycetes is a group of fungi which includes organisms like Rhizopus, Albugo, etc. These Rhizopus and Albugo are example of Phycomycetes. If we talk about the mode of nutrition in them, they are obligate parasites. They are obligate parasites on plants. And if we talk about the reproduction, mode of reproduction in Phycomycetes, they can reproduce asexually and they can reproduce sexually as well. If we talk about asexual reproduction in Phycomycetes, they produces motile spore. They can reproduce asexually with the help of motile spores known as zoospores. They also produces non-motile spores. They also reproduces by asexual means with the help of non-motile spores known as aplanospores. If we talk about sexual reproduction in Phycomycetes, yes, they can reproduce sexually, and the sexual reproduction in Phycomycetes can be of isogamous, oogamous and anisogamous as well, which result into the formation of thick-walled zygospores. So this is all about Phycomycetes. Now we will write first class of kingdom fungi, that is Phycomycetes here. As we have discussed the very first class of kingdom fungi, now we are going to write about the features as mode of nutrition and mode of reproduction of Phycomycetes. So Phycomycetes first of all is a group of fungi which includes Rhizopus, Albugo, etc. Albugo, etc. These are the examples of Phycomycetes. If we talk about the mode of nutrition, of Phycomycetes members, they are obligate parasites, on plant. That means they are heterotrophic, and in heterotrophic they are parasitic in nature. They exhibit heterotrophic mode of nutrition. They are not capable of synthesizing their own food because they are not having chlorophyll pigment in them. Hence they are heterotrophic in nature. And what kind of heterotrophic they are? They are obligate parasites on plants. If we talk about the mode of reproduction, we know that the members of Phycomycetes can reproduce asexually as well as sexually. If they are reproducing asexually, they produces or reproduces with the help of motile spores, known as zoospores, and sometimes they reproduces through non-motile spores known as aplanospores. 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 The important thing to remember is these both type of spores, zoospores which are motile in nature and aplanospores which are non-motile in nature. These both type of spores are produced in the special structure in them which is known as sporangia, and they are produced inside the sporangium. That is why we can call them that these both spores, zoospores and aplanospores, are produced endogenously in a specialized structure known as sporangia. If we talk about the sexual means of reproduction in them, it can be isogamous, it can be anisogamous, or it can be oogamous, which result into the formation of thick-walled zygospore, which result into the thick-walled zygospore. So this is about Phycomycetes. Now we already know that the fungi has been classified into 4 different categories such as Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes and Deuteromycetes. We have discussed Phycomycetes, which is the first class of fungi. Then we are going to discuss now the second class of fungi, that is Ascomycetes. Now this class of fungi such as Ascomycetes includes members like Penicillium, Aspergillus, Claviceps and Neurospora. These are the members which are included in the second class of fungi, that is Ascomycetes. If we talk about the mode of reproduction in Ascomycetes, they can be saprophytic in nature, they can be decomposer, they can be parasitic as well, and also they can be corpophilous. Now what does that mean? What does corpophilous means? The organisms which can grow or feed upon dung, those organisms are known as corpophilous. So this is all about the nutrition type of Ascomycetes. If we talk about the reproduction, mode of reproduction in Ascomycetes, then the members such as Neurospora, Claviceps or all the members which are included in Ascomycetes can reproduce through both the means of reproduction, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. They can reproduce asexually with the help of some spores such as conidia in conidiophores, which are produced exogenously on them. If we talk about the sexual means of reproduction in them, they can reproduce through ascospores. Which is a type of sexual reproduction in them. These ascospores produced endogenously in them, that means the spores, ascospores, which are sexual spores, are produced inside their body, and these are produced in a sac-like structure called as asci and are arranged in ascocarps. So this is all about the mode of nutrition and reproduction mode in Ascomycetes, which is the second class of fungi. If we want to write the second class of fungi, that is Ascomycetes. Alright, in Ascomycetes, first of all, we will write some examples. What are them? They are Penicillium. The Penicillium which is used to make antibiotics. We know that the first antibiotic was prepared with the help of penicillium. This penicillium, that penicillium is actually included in the class of Ascomycetes. So under this Ascomycetes, which is the second class of fungi, we have penicillium. Then we have Aspergillus. Also we have Claviceps and Neurospora. So all these are the examples of Ascomycetes, class of a fungi. Then if we talk about the mode of nutrition in them, the mode of nutrition in them can be saprophytic in nature. They can be saprophytic. They can be saprophytic in nature. They can be decomposer. They can be decomposer. They also can be parasitic. They also can be parasitic. That means they can stay and they can obtain their nutrition from the host organism as well. And also they can be corpophilous. Corpophilous, which means they can grow and feed upon dung. Alright, so they can feed upon dung also. So these are the mode of nutrition in class of Ascomycetes. If we talk about the mode of reproduction in them can be asexual, and sexual as well. If we talk about the asexual means of reproduction in Ascomycetes, they can reproduce through spores known as conidia, which is very common in case of fungi. So conidia are asexual spores produced in Ascomycetes members of fungi. These conidia, which are asexual spores, are produced exogenously. That means not inside the body of them. The spores known as conidia, which are asexual spores, are actually produced outside the body of organism or fungi. That means exogenously. Alright, if we talk about the sexual means of reproduction, they also reproduce by sexual means by producing sexual spores, that is ascospores. Ascospores are the sexual spores produced inside the body of Ascomycetes members. That means ascospores are going to produce endogenously because they are producing inside the body. So these spores are produced endogenously. Alright, but inside the special structure, which is a sac-like structure known as asci. So these ascospores are going to produce inside asci and are arranged in ascocarps. So this is all about the second class of fungi, that is Ascomycetes. Now we already have discussed the examples or the members which are included in the class of fungi, that is Ascomycetes. We already discussed the mode of nutrition in the members of Ascomycetes, and also we have discussed the reproduction, which is asexual and sexual. They can reproduce by both means of reproduction, that is asexual and sexual, and we have discussed the different types of reproduction in them. That is, if we talk about asexual, they can produce or they can reproduce with the help of asexual spores known as conidia, which are very common in them, and these conidias, which are asexual spores, are produced exogenously, that means outside their body. And if we talk about the sexual means of reproduction, they also can reproduce sexually by producing sexual spores known as ascospores, which are produced inside their body in a sac-like structure known as asci and are arranged in ascocarps. So this is all about the second class of fungi, Ascomycetes. Now here we are going to talk about the third class of fungi, that is Basidiomycetes. Now this Basidiomycetes, which is a third class of fungi, includes some members such as Eustylago, Agaricus and Puccinia. All these are the examples or the members which are included in the class of fungi, that is Basidiomycetes. If you talk about the mode of nutrition in Basidiomycetes, then they can be decomposers in soil, they can be decomposers on tree logs and tree stumps. So they can be decomposers, alright, they can be decomposer in soil, they can be decomposer on tree logs and tree stumps. They also can live as parasite in some plants. They can also live as parasite in some plants. That means they can obtain their nutrition from that plants inside which they are living. And they also can cause some diseases such as rust and smut in those plants. So this is all about the mode of nutrition in the members of Basidiomycetes. That means they can be decomposers in soil, tree logs and tree stumps, and they also can live as parasite in some plants and also can cause some diseases such as rust and smuts. Now if we talk about the reproduction, mode of reproduction in the members of Basidiomycetes, then if we talk about the asexual reproduction, we have basically two types of reproduction, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Then if we talk about the asexual means of reproduction in the members of Basidiomycetes, there can not be produced asexual spores. They cannot produce asexual spores. Hence, they are not capable of reproducing through asexual means because there are no spores are going to produced in them which are asexual in nature. So they cannot reproduce asexually, but they can reproduce by the vegetative means of reproduction, which is also a type of asexual reproduction, and they can reproduce by the fragmentation method of vegetative reproduction. We know that the difference between sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction, that asexual reproduction does not involve the formation and fusion of gametes, whereas sexual reproduction is characterized by the fusion of two different types of gametes. Similarly, vegetative reproduction does not involve any fusion of gametes. That is why this is considered as a type of asexual reproduction. But the thing to remember in the members of Basidiomycetes is, we know that in the previous classes of fungi, we know that the asexual spores are produced such as conidia, through which the Ascomycetes were going to reproduce by asexual means. But in the members of Basidiomycetes, they are not going to produce asexual spores. There is no production of asexual spores. Hence, they cannot reproduce by the asexual means of reproduction, but they can reproduce through vegetative means of reproduction with the help of fragmentation. That means their body can break down into different fragments, and each fragment can give rise to a new member of Basidiomycetes. This is all about the asexual reproduction. If we talk about the sexual means of reproduction in Basidiomycetes, then the sex organs are also absent in the members of Basidiomycetes. They are not having any kind of sexual organs in them. So then how could they reproduce? How the reproduction takes place in the members of Basidiomycetes? If they are not reproducing through asexual means, they are undergoing fragmentation for their reproduction. And when it comes to sexual reproduction, the sex organs are also absent in them. Alright, they cannot reproduce asexually, they cannot reproduce sexually because they are not having any sex organs, but a similar kind of sexual reproduction can happen in them, that is known as plasmogamy. They can reproduce through plasmogamy, which is considered as sexual reproduction in the members of Basidiomycetes. Now, what is plasmogamy? Plasmogamy involves the fusion of two different type of strains of hyphae. This results into the formation of a dikaryon stage, and this dikaryon stage will produce basidium, inside which the 4 basidiospores are going to produced. So this is how the members of Basidiomycetes class of fungi actually reproduces. They do not reproduce through production of asexual spores or asexual means of reproduction. They can reproduce through fragmentation, which is a means or a method of vegetative reproduction. If we talk about the sexual reproduction, they can reproduce through plasmogamy, which involves the fusion of two different types of strains, which result into the formation of a dikaryon stage and which also result into the formation of a basidium and finally going to produce basidiospores inside the basidium. So we are going to discuss about basidiomycetes. As we know that, first of all, we are going to write examples or the name of those members which are included in the class of basidiomycetes of fungi. Then we know that Eustylago, Agaricus and Puccinia, which is responsible for causing diseases in plants because they are living as parasites in them. Now, if we talk about the members of basidiomycetes, we know that Eustylago, Agaricus and Puccinia are the members which are involved in the class of fungi that is known as basidiomycetes, which is the third class of fungi. If we talk about the mode of nutrition in them, if we talk about the mode of nutrition, they can be decomposers. They can be decomposers in soil. They can be decomposer in soil on tree logs and tree stumps So this is the nutrition, one type of nutrition which can be exhibited by the members of basidiomycetes. They can be decomposers in soil on tree logs and tree stumps. Also they can live as parasite on plants, parasite on some plants, and can cause some diseases such as rust and smut. Some diseases such as rust and smut. So this is all about the mode of nutrition exhibited by the members of basidiomycetes. Last, we are going to talk about the mode of nutrition in them, mode of reproduction in them. Then there is no production of asexual spores can be found in the members of basidiomycetes. So no asexual spores are produced in basidiomycetes, hence they can reproduce through vegetative reproduction and by the method of fragmentation, which is a type of method included in the vegetative reproduction only. So they can reproduce fragmentation. That means the body can be divided into different fragments and each fragment can give rise to a new fungi. If we talk about the sexual means of reproduction, they can reproduce through plasmogamy because they are not having sexual organs on them. So they can reproduce through plasmogamy, which is a type of sexual reproduction inside which this is a process basically of reproduction. What happens in the plasmogamy? The two different types of strains of hyphae actually fuses with each other. Hyphaes are haploid in nature. All the hyphaes as the body are haploid. So hyphaes are haploid in nature. The two haploid hyphaes, the two different strains of hyphae which are haploid in nature are going to fuse with each other to form a dikaryotic stage, and this dikaryotic stage is going to produce basidium, which is going to produce 4 basidiospores inside the basidium. So this is all about the basidiomycetes or the members of basidiomycetes. We already have discussed the nutrition, how they actually take or obtain their nutrition by different ways, and also we have discussed how they actually reproduces. That means they can reproduce through fragmentation and plasmogamy. So this is all about the answer of this. Now we are going to move the last class. Now we are going to discuss the last class of fungi, that is Deuteromycetes. So now let's discuss the last class of fungi, that is deuteromycetes. And if we talk about the members of deuteromycetes, then Alternaria, Trichoderma and Colatotrichum, all these are the examples of deuteromycetes or are the members which are included in the class of deuteromycetes. Alternaria, Trichoderma and Colatotrichum. If we talk about the mode of nutrition in the members of deuteromycetes, some of the members of deuteromycetes can be saprophytic, some members can be parasitic in nature, and a large number of deuteromycetes are actually decomposers on leaf litters. Now, this is the type of nutrition they can be exhibited by the members of deuteromycetes. If we talk about the mode of reproduction in them, so simply they can reproduce by asexual means of reproduction only, such as with the help of conidia, which are asexual spores. And if we talk about the sexual means of reproduction, that is absent in them. That means the members of deuteromycetes cannot reproduce sexually, they only can reproduce through asexual means with the help of production of asexual spores such as conidia. The thing to remember is asexual spores. Asexual spores such as conidia are very common, and most of the fungi reproduces through conidia, which are the asexual spores. So last class of fungi we have is deuteromycetes. First we are going to talk about the examples or the members which are included in the class of fungi, that is deuteromycetes. So first we have is Alternaria. Second is Trichoderma, and the last is Colatotrichum. These all three are the members or examples which are included in the class of deuteromycetes of fungi. Now if we talk about the mode of nutrition in the members of deuteromycetes, then some members of deuteromycetes are saprophytic in nature. Some members can be saprophytic in nature, and some members of deuteromycetes can be parasitic in nature. That means they can obtain their nutrition by living inside the host organism, and a large number of organisms included in the class of deuteromycetes are actually decomposers. Large number of organisms included in the class of deuteromycetes are actually decomposers on leaf litters. If we talk about the reproduction type in them, they can only reproduce through asexual means of reproduction with the help of very common spores, that is conidia. Only asexual reproduction can be found in them, and they reproduce with the help of very common spores which are asexual in nature, that is conidia, and sexual reproduction is actually absent in them. That means they cannot reproduce through sexual reproduction, only they can reproduce through asexual means of reproduction with the help of very common spores such as conidia. So now we have completed with this fourth and last class of fungi, we have completed the answer of question number 9, which includes 4 classes of fungi, that is Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes and Deuteromycetes. We have discussed the mode of nutrition and reproduction type, or the mode of reproduction in all the members or all the classes of fungi. With this, we have completed the question 9, and this is the complete solution of this question.